Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional, an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter. Today, we're brought to you by our friends at Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, or NAPS. What does it mean to really grieve a pet, and how can we do it well? Today, we're really excited to have Koryn Greenspan, founder of the Parted Paw, on to talk about the overlooked reality of pet loss and the profound emotional toll that it takes on us and our clients. Let's get started.
Thanks for having me on today and doing this. By the way, I really want to communicate how much I appreciate it.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, Koryn. I'm super excited to have you on and cover this topic. I know it's one that, man, it's interesting. You see a lot of people who come into the industry for the pets, right? And they're pets. And it's all about the pets, and they're kind of crazy pet people. And then they suffer their first death of a client, it's pet, or they, have issues with dealing with things emotionally because it's an emotional struggle now. And they feel like, where did this come from? Right? Like, what is this? What is happening now? And just being able to go, this is a massive piece that comes with everything else that we get to do. We talk about, we get to help people. We get to help them live their best life. We do get the puppy cuddles and kitty kisses. We do get to go through these things. And also, we have to work through these tough times. And if we're not, it's kind of like this, I don't know, it's an aspect that not enough people talk about or even consider, for sure.
I think you're speaking towards it really, really bang on, in the sense that as a society, we've created this space for so much professional, wonderful outlets for our animals and our pets to evoke every part of our life. So we've created this wonderful space, and then our pets pass and it's empty. There's no support created for it. And it's this challenge that we really can't reconcile, and society has yet to support. It doesn't make sense.
Right. It's this. We build everything up. You're right. For while they're alive, right? For this. Oh, we're really pet friendly. I hear that a lot. We're really pet friendly. We're a pet friendly city, or we're a pet friendly building, or we're a pet friendly whatever. And yet, as soon as there's no pet there, it kind of, you feel cut off and like, well, okay, on to the next thing, right? And it really
on to the next thing, back to work.
Yep, it leaves people in limbo, just waiting, kind of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does. It really does leave them in limbo, and I think there's a responsibility that's really lacking in creating that type of space, to be honest. And I think that that's something that's incredibly valuable. And, we talk about mental health, and we talk about self-care, and we talk about prioritizing our well-being. I mean, what is a greater loss for most people than their pets passing away? Why isn't pet loss being taken into consideration in a mental self-care capacity and wellness?
You said that phrase, there's a responsibility that's lacking. Where does that responsibility fall?
That's a very big question. I just got chills, and very eloquently asked. I think it falls in many different places. So I think this falls in a professional capacity. I don't think there's a responsibility from our professional places of employment to support people during pet loss. I think there's a challenge sometimes that kind of come from our veterinarian clinics and practices. So there's a real challenge with pet loss and pet, end of lifetime. So there's some gaps there that need to be supported and filled. And I also think that there's just this very large communication of society at large. This is the third tier, where it's, well, a pet isn't a human, so it's not as important. And that is profoundly painful for people to hear and have to endure.
I think you mentioned finding those spaces for people to fill these roles. I think a lot of people look to first their vets, the veterinarians, to go, okay, you need to help me through this grieving process. And that's That's not their role. Like, they can be there to support, they can be there to help, but they're to diagnose, to heal, to work on the body and let you know whenever things aren't working, right? Like, that's what they're there for. And they do an amazing job at it. And there are some veterinaries in clinics and people and individuals that dive into the bereavement, the loss, the mental health aspect of this. But that's not their primary focus. And so there's this kind of undue expectation and burden, I think, that a lot of people place on them to say, okay, now you also help me walk through this grief. And kind of what you're talking about here is going, where's the other spaces that we can open up in our society where we can go that are actually for that specific thing?
Yeah, I think that's really a great point you just made with regard to vets. It is not their job to take care of afterlife and emotional well-being. It is during that time. And there is an evolution in that space where vet clinics are now starting to work, let's say, with companies like the Parted Paw, or they're starting to offer resources. I think there's a huge space during anticipatory grief before we even get to end of life, where society as a whole, to fill in those gaps, can start actually thinking about pet loss, about time at work, about going through the quality of life scale with the vet, so we can take all this pressure off the vet. And we can actually have a really connected ending and a beautiful goodbye. Whereas a lot of time pet loss right now is very reactive.
Right. Well, it's that, I don't know what to say, like pre-work or pre-exposure. I think it's just developing an understanding of what is out there and what that's going to look like, because you're right. A lot of times it's just in the moment, day to day, especially for even more so for a lot of our elderly pets, where you are so in the moment dealing with hour to hour sometimes of their specific needs that we're not even thinking about tomorrow. And it can still shock us into, wow, what now? Right, when they pass, and when they're younger, we are still in the moment because they're full of life and vigor, and we're doing all the fun stuff, and they're getting into messes, and they're doing all this, and we don't allow ourselves to have that time to think ahead or to look ahead to go, what do I need? What am I need? And that's where we because we're caregivers in that aspect, we're focused on the pet in front of us instead of what we're going to need when they're gone.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And anticipatory grief. So what you're explaining is anticipatory grief before a pet, and we're watching them, we're in the phases, and you're so correct. We become completely inert around it. We have no movement in anticipatory grief. Whereas if we start understanding and breaking down all of the things that pet loss can be, we can actually create movement, which can bring the person who is the mourner, the soon-to-be mourner. Movement and action can be very grounding. It can actually bring a lot of peace to because it's going to be awful. But if you can find a way to connect to it, and have autonomy and planning, and let's say, think about in-home euthanasia, being euthanized in your home, right? Home pet nurse. There's a great company called Home Pet. Come to your home. What do you want to do with the remains? In anticipatory grief, if we can start doing these things, we can actually change the moment and the entire way our pet passing happens in society.
And is that because, like, walk me through why that anticipatory grief is so important versus the reactionary aspect of what most of us end up doing and going through?
Anticipatory grief is an opportunity. That's why it's so important. And if we're not moving and creating action as much as we can, even if it's a little action that has a big outcome, the passing, the reactivity of that moment creates such a layered level of grieving after. And the reason why is because we are stuck then in our what ifs, I should have, I could have, regret, guilt. There's no space. You're dealing with such a profound foundation of inability to emotionally function after that. And that's why it matters. If you can change it, your outcome after will be different, is different, can be different.
Well, at least our perception of that, right? I think that's what you're really talking about here, like how we are grieving through that process of, if I've never thought through cremate or bury or like, now I'm in the moment, I'm devastated, and I'm having to flip through a little pamphlet. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Like, no.
Yes.
And it kind of like, now I'm not able to grieve because I'm in decision-making process, and that healing
100%.
gets delayed. Sorry. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize, because you're exactly communicating it. Or, anticipatory grief, there's this time during that space where people are looking at their pet and they're saying to themselves, do I let you go? Like, this is very layered, and death for pet loss is extremely complicated. I don't know why this is not further discussed. We are actually deciding if our very best friend, closest ally, and greatest companion is going to live or die. That, unless an assisted suicide, God forbid, in a human, God forbid, all death, God forbid, by the way, there's no other instance where we are actively doing this. So if you're looking at your senior pet and you're nursing them till the time they die, this is the time for something such as the quality of life scale to be in doctor. This is an action. This is an action that we can take. You have a higher, in short, you have a higher than a 35, your dog is still in good quality of life. You have a lower than a 35, you have to actively start making decisions. Do you know how positive that is? When you think about that space, if the word positive can be attached to that, but you get to have movement.
Now, talk to us about that quality of life scale and kind of what aspects that takes into account, and really like what we need to start looking for and being aware of with the pets that are around us.
Yeah, so it's, more good days than bad days, mobility, food intake, water intake, bathroom habits, social habits, sleeping the same way. These are all the different qualities that really attribute to a dog's physical well-being. And when we are looking at, this idea of having to end our pet's life, this idea of having to make this horrible decision, for lack of a better word, we get stuck there. Right? And if we actually, and I use this a lot with my clients, like I have a lot of clients in inquiry in anticipatory grief at this time, you'd be surprised at how powerful bringing an objective tool in can be emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because now...
Yeah, because now it's not like I didn't decide this, it's somebody else said, but it's what it is. It's we are being given permission, because in our hearts a lot of times we know, like our dog, he passed away beginning of last year, and
sorry,
thank you. It is still one of the most just like I think I thought I had everything okay until I realized I had to go get my kids to go tell them about Kobe's passing. And then I was like, oh, this conversation Colin was not prepared for. Like, at all, right? Like,
right.
Oh, okay. Now I'm losing.
There's more here. There's more. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And throughout that process, it was he's not the same. I know he's not the same dog that he was a year ago, 6 months ago. But my goodness, because all of a sudden it's the memories that we keep them around and that we're holding on to, and there's this hope that maybe they're going to turn it around and get better, or today's a good day. I don't want to do it on a good day. Like, we'll just wait one more, and all of a sudden you get into this delay, and having that objective, like you said, that third party metric or person to come alongside you and say, here's what we're seeing. And decisions still have to be made, like you said, like that we're not just revoking our autonomy in this, but we are giving support to us and more evidence and that permission structure that allows us to move forward in this.
I think what it is to speak of autonomy, I think we're creating space for autonomy, actually. Through that objective tool, is we're saying, oh, I understand, I can do this now. Because really when we're deciding end of life, we are the ambassadors of our pet's life and death. And this is not often talked about. I mean, that is the end. That's the last job if we get to, by the way, so much, there is a huge percentage, smaller percentage, that is traumatic. We don't get that chance. Yeah. So if we're in this space with them, this is the final task of love. And that's the job.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Claire from Acton Critter Sitters has this to say.
Time to Pet has honestly revolutionized how we do business. My sitters can work much more independently because they have ongoing access to customer and pet information without relying on me. I save hours upon hours of administrative time on billing, processing payments, and generating paychecks.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show will save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. Koryn, how did you find yourself in pet bereavement and this line of work?
Well, I've been working with pets professionally for 18 to 20 years now. This is my second business. And I opened my first business for Georgia, my rescue dog. And then we built that company together, she and I. And during that time, I know it's a crazy thing to say, but I swear to God, Georgia was my boss. And Georgia was my boss. Okay. God love her. And I adore her soul and her spirit. Okay. Oh. But during that time, I had a really unique opportunity to really spend the entire life trajectory with my clients from puppy till passing and then new puppy again. And I started to really connect to my clients' connection. And then I saw their pain upon passing. So that was one part. And then my family went through a trauma in 2021. My sister passed away of brain cancer. And this is horrible, right? But what I know, and also what I noticed during that time, society offers support, rightfully so, like in every corner. Here's time off work. Here's 4 counselors. Here's a group you can talk to. All of the, it's so beautiful. And then my Georgia died a year later, and her death, God forbid, was horrible. And it did not honor her. And I didn't have support. And there was this big gaping hole, which we're discussing, around my having to deal with her passing emotionally. And I just thought to myself, we have to be doing this differently. And I went back to school and I got my certification, and then I created the Parted Paw, and here we are.
Wow. So, having you directly experience this, right, that gives you some insight into, again, what your clients are going through or what can go through. So what's that process been like for you to get resources and learn and start talking to people about that? Koryn, how do those first initial conversations go with people who come to you? Like, are they coming open, skeptical, or are they just unsure about what's going to happen at all?
I think this is where media has been really helpful, and I'm so grateful for it. TikTok has been a really great resource for the Parted Paw. I get a lot of clients from there, and because of the communication on that page, a lot of clients know what they're getting and what they're stepping into. What I get a lot from that first call, and I've learned to call it a grief and release session, because what people really need during that first call is a space, really though, because they don't feel like they have it. They don't want to show it to their family. They're not their friends or their family are still disenfranchising their grief. Many times, this is a term I will discuss, and so that first session, it's a lot of tears. It's a lot of beautiful, misplaced love that is grief. And when we get through that, we can start to piece things together.
You're right, because they don't have that space, and they don't have that support to go and talk about, because like you said, like when you experience that the loss of your sister, and it's the horrible loss.
Yes.
Like, you're right. The red carpet is rolled out, rightfully so, right for here's all the resources, everything, and a pet passes away, and people go, cool, well, see you at work tomorrow. Or was still doing the party this evening for the friend group? Or why are you? Oh, you're sad. Why are you so sad? Like, what's going? It is this complete lack. Megan and I every fall host a pet loss memorial event. It started for our clients who we were caring for. Of if they lost a pet during the year, we would host it for them, and then we kind of open it up to our community at large. And I remember the very first one that we had, a girl came forward, and at the end we were just kind of talking about how things were going, and just people were sharing some stories. And the only thing she said was, I hope, and she just she had to say this. She was like, I hope she knew I tried. And
yes.
it was where her husky had a really horrible disease that she couldn't. She was trying all these different things, and it was this one more, what if, and she had never been able to share that with somebody. And she'd never been able to share this doubt and share this grief genuine, really doubt that was in her life. A year or two later, she was still carrying this around with her, walking around going, did I do enough? Did I do enough? And we don't see that in people around us, because where do you talk about this in polite society, quote unquote? You don't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, okay, anyway, back to normal.
Yeah. So I find it baffling. Like, I find it actually extremely bizarre. It's such a disconnect. It's so disheartening, I find, and it's not correct. It's not acceptable. Especially because we're at a place in society where, when you think about it, this is a generational shift. We're actually people aren't having babies as we do bring our pets to the office. New York judge just deemed that pets are dogs are family now. So we're creating these spaces, and this woman whom this happens hundreds of million times a day, people are walking around with their grief like a brick on their shoulder. And it's because of shame and guilt through disenfranchised grief of society. Yeah,
to talk about that more, about the role that plays in the individual and the grief process.
It's astounding. So disenfranchised grief is society's inability to acknowledge the emotional, mental, and physical toll pet loss has on our physical selves. Okay. And it refuses to support it in any way. So we see this in the ways that I discussed at the beginning of our time here today. So what this actually does, though, is it throws guilt on top of grief. It envelops people in shame. It is diminishing to the relationship that the pet parent had with their pet, and it's silencing. And all of that is painful.
Yeah, that aspect of even placing doubt on that relationship that they had, right? Did it even exist, right? Was it really that important? Was it? All these questions come up both intentionally and unintentionally from society and people around us at times, where you're right. There is no understanding of what that's like.
But there's no understanding. And then you're looking at yourself and you're saying to yourself, am I okay for feeling this sad?
Mm-hmm.
There's something very, very, very warped about that.
Right.
And I think it's really important to highlight it and have awareness about it, because it's dangerous. It's actually quite dangerous for people's well-being.
Well, when they start questioning the authenticity of the grief and that sadness, they start questioning whether it was all that important anyway. And they start questioning, you're right, like it's this, well, maybe I shouldn't feel this way. And then instead of actually going through the process of healing or of grief, it just gets buried and shoved in a corner. And we all know that works out so well, right? Years later.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great start to everything with regard to the healing process. So interestingly enough, so grief is the internal landscape of a loss. Mourning is the external expression of it. A lot of people don't know the difference between that.
Okay.
And to be in bereavement is to be torn apart. So these are three terms that we say there's actually meaning. And it's really important while we're grieving. So while we're working through our internal landscape and nervous system, which is enmeshed in loss, we are trying to find ways to mourn, which is the external expression. And we can't mourn if our grief is silenced.
Well, and you also talk about how grief, that internal process, is not a linear process, that it comes in waves. How do you help, or what are some recommendations that you have to navigate that process as far as knowing it's going to happen and being prepared for when that comes?
Well, so part of that navigation with clients is the understanding that when a wave of grief, which actually referred to as a grief burst, so there's a term for this, when this happens, it's our love. The grief is misplaced love. So when we have a grief burst, our love is present. And what we do is lean into it. And we try to connect to it. And we embody it. And we want to evoke our senses around it in action in some way. You want to write it down. You want to talk out loud. You want to have the tear. You want to, maybe you'll have a big laugh after it. There's so many different ways that we can embody this. And a lot of the understanding is that your love is present in that moment.
Making sure we have that framed correctly. And I think what that's
exactly
doing, this is not a bad thing that this is happening right now.
It's such a beautiful thing. Your pet is close. It means that there's a closeness somewhere that's happening, and it's existing for a reason. And to honor that is to connect. And that's what we're doing when we're mourning. We are connecting to our misplaced love through love. We're bridging that gap.
Now, that does take having time and space to do that too, right? Like if I am, because I know a very common thing that people do is during the grief, the mourning process, what do? They do get busy, right? They shovel everything that they can. Their calendar gets full. They say yes to everything, and they just move forward. And it's this, a lot of times it's this attempt to, when I do get that grief burst, well, I'm just going to, no time for that now. I have to go on to the next thing, and I'm not going to acknowledge that.
That actually is your nervous system protecting yourself. That is a survival mechanism to protect yourself from confronting the level of sadness when it comes up. Or when we're dealing with it. It's completely normal.
Again,
the thing is, it's going to catch up to you. It's going to catch up to you. Yeah. So we can identify the busyness, or the busyness, by the way, can manifest itself in complete inertia, not doing anything, right? This is all manifestations of nervous system protection. You're going to have to do it at some point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's comforting to know that that's a normal process of, okay, this is, my body is trying to protect itself. Okay, thank you, body, for that. However, I do need to work through this process now.
That's right. So are we ready? Have we arrived or not? Right? So, and if not, maybe we need another grief and relief session. What else is kicking you in the back seat there? Like, what else is going on? Because these are all manifestations of really deep enmeshed emotional system that requires healing.
How does somebody know if they're ready for that or not?
That's a really good question. I don't think people really fully know. I always say the first step is being here. The first step is reaching out. That's I don't think we know a lot when we're in grief. I think we're just knowing how we're feeling. Sure. And so sometimes people will reach out and they'll inquire. And their acute grief is really a hard time to work with clients sometimes because they haven't landed yet. Right? So the first step is making the call and reaching out and connecting and taking it from there.
Are you a passionate pet sitter or dedicated dog walker looking to take your career to the next level? Join the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, the leading organization dedicated to elevating pet care. With industry resources, ongoing education, and a network of like-minded experts, NAPS empowers you to shine in your field. Whether you're expanding your business or building new client relationships, their community is here to support you every step of the way. Visit petsitters.org today to learn more and join the movement. Take the leap and let your career flourish. NAPS, where pet care meets excellence. I guess then, is there a danger of doing it too early or trying to force that process into happening?
I think great care always has to be top of mind. That's number one. And so I think that this is why that discovery call happens, or this is why, I do have the Parted Paw does have a workbook and guide. It's a 21-day companion in grief. It's a daily prompt and it's an action around it. So sometimes if it is too much in the moment and you can tell or the client can tell, to start with the workbook is a really great place to neutralize if they are still in that really high place of acute grief.
I like that distinction, and I think that's important, of that acute grief, that initial spike, because we're not processing things I'm going to say correctly, right, or as we normally would, right? There's a lot going on, and trying to then pin things down, or that's really hard there. So giving some of that time to come down, 21 days or whatever that time is for you, for the individual. And I think basically we tend to know when that next step is appropriate. And I think as long as we are being aware of ourselves and acknowledging things like that next step tends to come more naturally when we're given that space.
Yeah, I think, I've also really learned the power of meeting people where they're at. I don't ever want, this service is for you, right? It's for the client. And if you're not there yet, we're not going to do this. Because, it's really hard work to actually confront your sadness. It's really profound, deep work. And that is something that only a person can bring themselves to do.
You can't be drug into that. You can't be forced into that, because forcing, right, there's no progress that's going to be made there.
There's no progress. It's not fair. It's, this pet loss is traumatizing. People don't understand that. This parcels into disenfranchised grief. This is trauma. And I couldn't in good conscience ever be like, well, we have to do this now. That's not how it works.
Right.
It's not the buzz.
Right. Well, maybe, Koryn, I'd like it if you could share some tools or notes, to that you've used or that you've seen work in supporting people through the processing of this and in their healing journey.
Well, everyone is different, first of all. So everybody, there's no two people grieve the same way, and everybody's healing journey is different. That's the first thing. So what I find, which can be very helpful, is actually while in session, after a few grief and relief sessions, is to actually go back to the 3 days leading up to the passing, the day of, and then the day after. And the reason why we do this, we get extremely enmeshed in our what if, I should have, I could have list. And in that space, we're dealing with a lot of guilt. However, if we go back to 3 days before the day and the day after, and we do a play-by-play, I can actually pull objectivity in terms of the love, good intention, what actually happened. And that in and of itself, you can almost immediately, I have chills thinking about it. You can see the relief after. So that is incredibly helpful. That's one thing. I'll offer one more around that is sometimes people don't want to actually leave their house because they don't want to come back to an empty home. So now in this space, what we have to start doing is we have to change routine. So when we're in these first few weeks, I often suggest to light a candle the minute you get home and speak to your pet and find a way to connect to them in that space. And people find a lot, I know it sounds, people find a lot of peace in that too. It makes them feel like they can go out and come home again.
Well, because that entry in the doorway is such a big part of our lives with our pet. Decade or more of being met right there. Always, they're always there, right? Oh, I always get greeted. And then that first day where you come back, it's like a sledgehammer to the chest.
You're empty.
Yeah.
You're totally correct. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry. And that candle, it at least is an action of that can create connected memory. So you're not walking, you're doing something. There's an action there. The space is not empty. You've evoked their presence in some way.
And I also like what you talked about of the go back and relive the few days before, the day of, and the day after, and how you specifically said you can pull the love and the good intentions out of that. And I think that's really important because that time can just become a real blur of what happened, because all of a sudden we're only focused on what the end result was. My pet's dead, right? And we forget the hour that we spent before them in the vet's office, holding them, snuggling them, rubbing their paws, singing to them, whatever we did. That kind of becomes lost when we just focus on that actual event. And not saying, again, like that everybody has that ability, but things were done, right? We carefully scooped their food and mixed it in the warm water just the way they always wanted. And we wrapped they were incontinent, so we had to change out their pad that day. And we did the little routine that we did with them all. Like, those are so important to hold on to.
Like that memory is it's correct. You are correct. And it also like can, because a lot of times what happens is people will say, I should have taken him to the vet sooner. I should have done this, like you're saying. But when we go back to it, you can actually pull out the vet said that the level of pain was at a 2, they could go home. Right. So then when you go through each of those, and then I read it back to them and I say, here's what your what if is. Here's what happened. Here's your fact. Mm-hmm. It's grounding. It's very, very grounding for them.
Koryn, how do you stay grounded emotionally during this process of it's emotionally charged? What's that like for you?
So this is called compassion fatigue, what you're speaking about. So compassion fatigue is pretty much referred to as the cost of caring. And it's something very interesting. I think I've had so much grief. It's almost a little healing in some way to be able to help people in the way that I didn't get the support that I needed. So there's something very connecting and powerful about it in that way. I'm very, I do have awareness of how many clients I'll take in a day. I do turn off my phone at a certain time. I do have office hours, so I do that. And to be honest, there's a lot of tears involved, and I'm happy to shed them and share them. And, to companion grief is an honor. And that's how I negotiate that.
Those boundaries are really important, and I know as pet sitters and dog walkers, a lot of times we find ourselves walking alongside clients who have just lost a pet and just going through this process, and many times we can be left going, What do I do, A, for them, but also, I mean, I've walked into clients' homes after they've lost a pet, and man, that sledgehammer just hits. There used to be 2 pets yesterday, right? And now there's that one as I walk in today. And yet I've still got a business to run. Yet I still have to be posting on social media. And yet I still have to run my everything else. And it can be that now all of a sudden I'm trying to be supportive to somebody who's grieving, but I'm also grieving and I have my busy life to run, and it all gets really messy.
Communication on top of what? Say it with me. Communication. Right?
Yeah.
And like, this is it. So it's really, you know, and if you're feeling like you can't call somebody in, your self-care is essential and paramount to be able to keep showing up for your clients. Acknowledge their pain, as I'm sure you can see you have a compassionate component to you, as I have no doubt that you do that for them. Communicate. That's how. You know, I do also do work with veterinarian clinics, you know, and their teams around compassion fatigue and teaching how to navigate this as well. So it's the boundaries and the self-care mixed with communication is very valuable.
Yeah, it's communicating for when we need help, reaching out to others. It's also just communicating with the client, because in that instance, some of the most healing thing that I've been able to do, and also encourage we have a team of employees that work in our business, of encouraging them to do, of just acknowledge what you're feeling right now to the client while you're there. Hey, you know, and that is so honoring to that memory of the impact that pet had on not just the owner, but the people around them, as well as now I am getting to express my grief, and I have a space to somebody who knows what I'm going through because it was also their pet.
That's so well said. And it's really important to do that. And there's, again, so this is a place of connection. This then becomes a place of connection. That's what we're really trying to do in all of this mourning and grief with pet loss, is to connect. Right. And by doing that, as you just suggested, it's very, very, very peaceful and connecting and healing, which is what we're trying to do.
Right. Yeah. What's something that you wish every pet professional, you know, dog walker, pet sitter, or, you know, veterinary groomer, whatever, knew more about grief and that process?
Everyone's grief is unique. People don't owe you an explanation for their grief. It's not their job. It's your job to show up for it in the best way that you can. And I think sometimes that's a really valuable thing that people kind of forget, you know, and even if that means you can't be present in a face way, like face to face, because it's too much, send flowers. Actively do something, because the people who don't support are not forgotten. And you don't want to be the person who doesn't support.
You know, many times the explanation can come from a good place of, I'm trying to help, right? I'm trying to help you get over, you know, get quote unquote, get over this or deal with this. So you just tell me and I'll help solve it. And instead of, because I know that's my first instinct a lot of times, it's just like, I'll help, I'll solve. Just tell me the thing, and I'll do something, right? We'll get over. And instead of just going like, and sometimes they just need that presence, and there's no understanding that needs to happen. Just an acknowledgement and permission to go through that process with us.
You got it. It's so, like, death is really awkward. I talk about this a lot on my TikTok. Death is really awkward endeavor to have to negotiate with and to have to witness. Like to witness someone's mourning, which is the external expression of their internal grief. That's very, very vulnerable for everybody who has to see it, and then for the person who has to live it. So we don't get to negotiate how we're going to show up. We're just going to show up. You nailed it, right? We're going to genuinely acknowledge it. We're going to communicate, we're going to connect, and we're going to do the best we can and meet the griever where they're at. That's where you start.
Yeah. There's a a children's book that I used to read to our kids called The Rabbit Listened. And I remember the first time I read this, I ended up bawling. I ended up crying by the end of this book. It's a real short, simple. The kid is building a tower of blocks, and the blocks get knocked over. And one by one, the animals come in, right? The lion comes in, and we're going to get angry. And the elephant comes in and goes, no, we're going to forget it. And the ostrich is going to hide. And the snake is, we're going to knock them back. And then at the very end, it comes in and the rabbit listened. And it's just the rabbit sits down next to the boy. And then the boy ends up going through all of those other emotions with the rabbit listening. And then at the end of the book, he starts rebuilding the blocks again. And I was like, where was this book when I was little?
That's so beautiful.
I just like...
And so the rabbit listens, right? That's just such a beautiful way to explain and communicate that. I think that's really special and true. And also true.
Yeah. Because again, when we're observing that, I really like that you mentioned that that's an awkward thing to witness the mourning process. And we often, it's the what do I do with my hands syndrome of like, I don't know, because I'm not going through it. So I don't know what's in your head and I don't know what's going to make it better. Do I need to make it better? And just being there a lot of times, or you said, acknowledging it with flowers or in some way showing up for that person.
That's what it is showing up, because ultimately they can receive it they can receive you at that moment, or they can't. But you did what you had to do. You did it. It's not easy. Nobody said it's easy. It's really, really hard, actually. And nobody can ever take away how hard it is to bear witness to somebody's sadness.
Right. Now, that's the coming alongside somebody aspect. If somebody's listening to this and they are just at the beginning of their journey, of their healing process, of the grief and mourning work, what guidance or what suggestions would you give to that person?
Your first week after pet loss is a non-week. The expectation that it should be anything else is really, 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 really hard to negotiate. And all bets are off during that week. And that is entirely okay. And if it's longer than a week, that is just fine too. That is the first thing that I would say, because we're in shock at this point. There's a disconnect. There's an identity loss that happens our entire internal network of self is decimated. And to bear witness and sit with your emotions around that, really valuable thing to do. It's really, really essential to your grieving process. That's probably the first thing I would say.
You mentioned the identity loss. That's certainly something that I haven't heard put into that kind of context. But just as in there is the death of our pet, there's a death of who we used to be in that aspect.
It's so profound. It's so profound. Identity loss with pet loss. It's one and the same. And I've thought about this, and I've done communication around it. Here's where it's different when we lose our pets to a person: that the people in our lives have their own lives outside of us. Right? And that doesn't mean, by the way, this doesn't mean that the death of a person is not tragic. And there's a difference, though. And the identity loss when you're dealing with a pet loss is that their entire life is dependent on you. And therefore, your existence goes to them. And so this can involve your physical well-being, your life outside of your home. This is social. This is how we start our days. This is how we go to sleep, is in managing and creating and being part of our pets. And so when they pass away, where does that part go? Mm. It's a whole other mourning that takes place. What happens? These are the questions that we go, who am I now? What do I do? How do I waking up during pet loss during that? It's impossible. People stay in bed for a really long amount of time because their identity around waking up is lost.
You had those first early morning moments of I got to wake up early because I got to get my dog outside, or I've got to get the food taken care of. I got to get this done. It's the little things too of, well, when I'm at the kitchen sink, I have to remember I have to watch where I put my feet because they like to come and sit right around me while I'm doing dishes. And now all that stuff that's just like, that's just the normal. And now I don't have to do that, but now I'm not the person who does that because I don't need to do it anymore. And it's interesting how big of a part of that is of our life, and we don't even notice it until it's gone.
We don't notice that.
And we don't notice it. This huge gaping hole just gets ripped out, and we're left going, well, that's shocking, right? Like it's where's all of me that I thought what used to be there?
That's right. And then we're tossed into a society that says, well, see you at work tomorrow. Come out for dinner tonight. You'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Right? And sorry, world, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Sorry, not sorry. Hashtag sorry, not sorry.
Koryn, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing this with us, this really important topic of not just what bereavement looks like and grief and mourning, but also how to be there for others, and to really shed light on this. So when we talk about being pet friendly, it's, as you put it, I loved it earlier, from beginning to end, right? From puppy to passing. It's all there in a much more holistic approach to this. I know this is a really big topic, and we barely scratched the surface on this. So if people are interested in learning more, getting connected, following along with everything that you're doing, how best can they do that?
Thank you so much. And also thank you for having me here. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. You're really great to chat with about this. So thank you. You can find the Parted Paw. That's the name of the company, the Parted Paw. We're on TikTok, a really nice community there. It's also on LinkedIn. I get published a lot. I do a lot of information and different podcasts around this. So you can find me, Koryn Greenspan, on LinkedIn. Or you can go to the website at www.thepartedpaw.com. Perfect.
Well, I will have links in the show notes and on the website so people can get connected with you and follow along. Koryn, again, this has just been an immense pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Colin. I appreciate it too. Take care.
What's our role in pet loss and grief? It's to show up in the best way that we can. It will be imperfect, and we'll have to give ourselves a little bit of grace too along the way. But just being there is the biggest thing that we can do. We often witness clients going through the heartbreak of losing a beloved companion. We don't need the right words. We just need to show up, whether that means in a quiet moment, handwritten note, or just simply being present. Your empathy matters. Grief isn't linear, and it's not our job to fix it. We just honor it. Let's be the kind of people who show up. We want to thank today's sponsors, our friends at Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, for making the show possible. And we really want to thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.